Michael Joseph Jackson never had a childhood. While other kids played outside, scraped their knees, and laughed without cameras watching, 5-year-old Michael stood under hot stage lights in Gary, Indiana, learning to perform. His father Joe saw something in him, a spark, a gift, something that could lift the entire Jackson family out of poverty. But gifts come with prices, and Michael would spend his entire life paying. The Jackson 5 rehearsals weren't playful band practice sessions. They were boot camps. Joe Jackson ran them like a drill sergeant, perfection demanded at every note. When Michael hit a wrong step or missed a beat, there were consequences. Not timeouts or stern talks, but real fear. The kind that stays with you. The kind that shapes how you see the world forever. Michael later spoke about those rehearsals with a tremor in his voice, describing how his father would sit in a chair with a belt, watching every move. One mistake could mean punishment. The other brothers felt it too, but Michael, being the youngest and the lead, carried the heaviest burden. By age 11, Michael Jackson was already a superstar. The Jackson 5 had #1 hits. Girls screamed his name. Adults marveled at this child who could sing like someone who'd lived 3 lifetimes. But behind the sequined vests and choreographed spins, Michael was losing something he'd never get back. While the world celebrated his talent, nobody asked what it cost him. Nobody wondered what happened when the music stopped and the crowds went home. Fame became his prison before he understood what freedom meant. He couldn't walk down a street. Couldn't make friends his own age without wondering if they wanted Michael the person or Michael the celebrity. Every relationship was complicated by suspicion and inequality. His brothers had each other, but Michael existed on a different plane. He was the special one, the lead singer, the moneymaker. That isolation carved out a hollow space inside him that would never quite fill up, no matter how many records he sold or awards he won. The teenage years should have brought relief, but they brought something worse, a mirror. Michael looked at his reflection and saw his father's face staring back. He hated it. He hated his nose, his skin, everything that reminded him of Joe. People would later speculate endlessly about his changing appearance, turning it into jokes and tabloid headlines. But they missed the psychology underneath. This wasn't vanity. This was a young man trying to escape his own reflection because it reminded him of fear, pain, and a childhood that never existed. By the time he turned 21, Michael had already been performing for 16 years. Most people that age are just starting their careers, figuring out who they want to become. Michael had been a product since kindergarten. He'd made millions for other people. He'd sacrificed his youth on the altar of entertainment. And now, standing at the edge of adulthood, he faced a terrifying question: who was he when he wasn't performing? The answer frightened him. Without the stage, without the music, without the applause, Michael didn't know how to exist. He'd never learned. So he did the only thing he knew how to do: he kept performing. He worked harder. He pushed himself toward perfection because perfection meant safety. If he was flawless, maybe the world would love him. Maybe he could finally feel worthy. Maybe the emptiness would go away. But perfection is a cruel master. It demands everything and gives nothing back. And Michael was about to learn just how much it would cost. 1982 changed everything. Thriller didn't just break records, it shattered reality itself. The album sold millions, then tens of millions, then more than any album in history. Michael Jackson became more than a celebrity. He became a phenomenon, a god, an idea bigger than any human could sustain. The world had never seen anything like it. His moonwalk on the Motown special made time stop. His videos were short films that played constantly on MTV. Every move he made was dissected, celebrated, immortalized. But immortality is lonely. Michael stood at the peak of success with nowhere to go but down. He'd achieved everything a performer could achieve by age 25. Most artists spend careers chasing one defining moment. Michael had captured lightning in a bottle and now had to live with the expectation that he'd do it again and again and again. The pressure was suffocating. Every album after Thriller would be compared to Thriller. Every performance measured against an impossible standard. He'd become a prisoner of his own success. The money poured in, but money couldn't buy what Michael wanted. He built Neverland Ranch as a sanctuary, filling it with amusement park rides, a private zoo, and childlike wonder. People mocked it. Late-night comedians made it a punchline. But nobody asked why a grown man would create such a place. Nobody considered that maybe Michael was trying to build the childhood he never had. Neverland wasn't about refusing to grow up. It was about trying to heal a wound that wouldn't close. Behind the gates of his fantasy estate, Michael lived in increasing isolation. He trusted fewer people every year. The vultures circled closer, managers, lawyers, hangers-on who saw him as a cash machine. His family wanted money. His father still loomed large despite the physical distance. Record executives wanted hits. Fans wanted perfection. Everyone wanted something from him. Nobody asked what he needed. Nobody offered to simply listen without agenda, without judgment, without wanting anything in return. The prescription medication started quietly. A pill for sleep. Another for anxiety. Something for the pain from dance rehearsals that pushed his body beyond human limits. Doctors said yes to Michael Jackson when they'd say no to anyone else. Fame grants access, and access can be dangerous. Each pill offered temporary relief from the crushing weight of being Michael Jackson. But temporary solutions to permanent problems create new problems. The doses increased. The dependence deepened. And still, nobody intervened. His behavior grew more eccentric in the public eye. He wore surgical masks, spoke in a whisper, surrounded himself with yes-men. The tabloids loved it. Wacko Jacko, they called him, turning a man's obvious pain into entertainment. Every strange detail became fodder for mockery. He slept in a hyperbaric chamber. He tried to buy the Elephant Man's bones. Most of these stories were exaggerated or false, but the truth didn't matter. The narrative was set. Michael Jackson was weird, and weird was funny. But beneath the weirdness was desperation. Michael was screaming for help in the only ways he knew how. His actions weren't random. They were symptoms. When someone as controlled and calculating as Michael Jackson starts behaving erratically, it means the center isn't holding. It means the pain has become unbearable. But the world was too busy laughing to notice. Too entertained by the spectacle to recognize the human being drowning inside it. The allegations came in 1993 and nearly destroyed him. Whether you believed them or not, they broke something fundamental in Michael. His name, his legacy, everything he'd built was threatened. He maintained his innocence, but the court of public opinion had no presumption of innocence. The investigation consumed him. The stress manifested physically: weight loss, exhaustion, despair. He cancelled tours, checked into rehabilitation, and tried to disappear. But you can't disappear when you're Michael Jackson. The world won't let you go. He settled the civil case, and people took that as guilt. But the system had trapped him. Fight and endure years of public humiliation, or settle and try to move forward. He chose survival, but the cost was his reputation. From that point on, suspicion followed him everywhere. Parents clutched their children tighter when he passed. Former supporters distanced themselves. The man who'd spent his entire life trying to recapture childhood innocence was now accused of destroying it in others. The cruelty of that irony was almost poetic. Michael Jackson didn't fit into boxes, and the world punishes people who don't fit. He was black but kept getting lighter. He was masculine but spoke softly. He was sexual on stage but claimed to be innocent of it. These contradictions made people uncomfortable. They couldn't categorize him, couldn't understand him, so they mocked him instead. Mockery is easier than empathy. Judgment requires less effort than understanding. His changing appearance became an obsession for media and public alike. Each surgery, each shade lighter, sparked fresh waves of commentary. People diagnosed him from photographs, psychoanalyzed him on talk shows, debated his mental state at dinner parties. Everyone had an opinion about what was wrong with Michael Jackson. But very few people asked what had been done to him. Very few traced the line from abused child to traumatized adult. Society prefers to judge symptoms than examine causes. The skin condition vitiligo was real. Doctors confirmed it after his death. But during his life, most people didn't believe him. They thought he was bleaching his skin to be white, betraying his race, hating himself. The accusations cut deep because Michael had always been proud of his heritage. He'd sung about black pride, championed black artists, owned the Beatles' catalog partly to secure his own economic power in an industry that exploited black musicians. But nuance disappears in the glare of public scrutiny. Complex truth loses to simple narrative. His relationships confused people too. He married Lisa Marie Presley, and everyone called it a publicity stunt. When that ended, he married Debbie Rowe, who gave him children, and people said he'd purchased a family. His love life became another punchline. The idea that Michael Jackson could want normal things, companionship, romance, family, seemed impossible to the public imagination. They dehumanized him so thoroughly that ordinary human desires looked suspicious on him. The children became his purpose. Prince, Paris, and Blanket gave Michael something he'd never had: people who loved him without conditions. They didn't care about his fame or his music or his money. They just wanted their father. He shielded them from the world, sometimes bizarrely, like the infamous balcony incident in Berlin where he dangled his baby over a railing. The image horrified people. But Michael wasn't trying to hurt his child. He was trying to share him with fans, not understanding how it looked. His judgment was warped by a lifetime of abnormal experiences. The financial troubles mounted throughout the early 2000s. Despite earning hundreds of millions during his career, Michael was drowning in debt. Bad investments, expensive tastes, legal fees, and hangers-on had drained his fortune. He borrowed against his assets, including his stake in the Sony catalog. The pressure to earn money became crushing. He had to tour again. Had to record again. Had to be Michael Jackson again, even though being Michael Jackson was killing him. AEG Live offered a lifeline, a series of comeback concerts in London. This is it, they called it. 50 shows at the O2 Arena. The money would solve everything. Michael could pay his debts, secure his children's future, and prove he still had it. But his body was failing. At 50 years old, after decades of extreme performing, multiple surgeries, and prescription drug dependence, Michael Jackson was held together by willpower and medication. The rehearsals were brutal. He couldn't sustain the energy. He was losing weight. He couldn't sleep. People around him saw the decline. Dancers noticed he seemed frail. Production staff whispered concerns. But the machine had momentum. Too much money was invested. Too many tickets sold. Too many people counting on Michael Jackson to be superhuman one more time. So they pushed him. Encouraged him. Told him he could do it. And when he said he couldn't sleep, when he begged for something to help him rest, they found someone who would say yes. They always found someone who would say yes to Michael Jackson. Dr. Conrad Murray entered Michael's life as the solution to an impossible problem. Michael needed sleep. Real sleep. The kind that knocks you unconscious so you can't think about the pressure, the pain, the fear, the 50 shows looming, the world expecting magic, the reality that you're just human. Murray had access to propofol, a powerful anesthetic used in hospitals. He agreed to administer it in Michael's bedroom. Everyone should have said no. Everyone should have intervened. But the machine needed Michael Jackson functioning, and this was the only way left. June 2009 found Michael Jackson in a mansion in Holmby Hills, Los Angeles, preparing for what he believed would be his redemption. The This Is It concerts represented everything: financial salvation, career comeback, a chance to show the world he was still the king of pop. But redemption is heavy, and Michael was exhausted. He'd been preparing for months, rehearsing routines that would challenge a 20-year-old, let alone a man approaching 51 who'd spent decades pushing his body past reasonable limits. The rehearsal footage shows flashes of brilliance. Michael could still move, still command a stage, still create magic when the music played. But between those moments of genius were signs of a man struggling. He wore multiple layers of clothing because he was always cold. His weight had dropped to dangerous levels. His voice, that incredible instrument, sometimes seemed thin and strained. The dancers around him were young and full of energy. Michael tried to match them, but his body betrayed him more each day. Nights were his enemy. When rehearsals ended and everyone went home, Michael faced the darkness alone. Sleep wouldn't come naturally. His mind raced with anxiety about the shows, about his children's future, about money, about legacy, about everything he'd built and everything that could still crumble. He tried various medications over the years. Sleeping pills lost effectiveness. Anxiety medications took the edge off but didn't solve the fundamental problem. Michael Jackson couldn't turn off being Michael Jackson. Dr. Conrad Murray became a fixture in the house, hired at Michael's insistence to help him sleep. Murray was a cardiologist, not an anesthesiologist, but he had something Michael wanted: propofol. In hospitals, propofol is carefully monitored. It suppresses breathing. It requires constant observation. Patients are intubated, hooked to monitors, surrounded by emergency equipment. But in Michael's bedroom, there was just Murray, some monitoring equipment, and a desperate man who wanted peace. The people closest to Michael saw the danger but felt powerless. His children noticed their father growing weaker. Staff members exchanged worried glances. Kenny Ortega, the show's director, sent emails to producers expressing concern about Michael's physical and mental state. He wrote that Michael was having trouble focusing, that he seemed lost, that intervention was needed. But the response was always the same: the show must go on. Too much was at stake. Michael just needed support. He'd be fine. Michael spoke about his fears to the few people he still trusted. He worried he wouldn't survive the tour. He told some that he felt people were trying to take advantage of him, to work him to death. These statements were dismissed as paranoia, as the ramblings of an anxious performer. But maybe Michael knew his own limits. Maybe he understood that what was being asked of him, 50 stadium shows without breaks, was beyond what his body could endure. Maybe he was reaching out, saying he needed help, and nobody heard him clearly enough. On June 24, Michael rehearsed at the Staples Center. The footage from that night shows him engaged, performing, seemingly in good spirits. He sang "They Don't Care About Us" and worked through several numbers with the dancers. Staff members later said it was one of his better rehearsals. He seemed focused. When it ended after midnight, Michael left for home. He'd sleep, recover, and return tomorrow. Except tomorrow would never come. At the mansion, Murray prepared the bedroom for another night of propofol. This had become routine. Michael couldn't sleep without it. Murray would administer the drug through and for, monitor him, and wake him in the morning. It was dangerous and unethical, but desperation creates terrible decisions. Michael trusted Murray because Murray gave him what he needed: unconsciousness. A few hours where he wasn't Michael Jackson. A brief escape from the prison of fame. The exact timeline of that night remains disputed. Murray's story changed multiple times. But the essential facts are these: Murray gave Michael propofol. Murray left the room. When Murray returned, Michael wasn't breathing. Murray attempted CPR. Murray delayed calling 911. By the time paramedics arrived, Michael Jackson was dying or already dead. The attempts to revive him failed. At 2:26 p.m. on June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson was pronounced dead at Ecclesia Medical Center. The cause: acute propofol intoxication. The classification: homicide. The world stopped. News broke across every platform. People who'd mocked him, dismissed him, called him weird and worse, suddenly mourned. Vigils appeared outside his childhood home in Gary, outside Neverland, outside Ecclesia. Millions of people wept for a man they'd never met. The irony was suffocating. In death, Michael received the compassion he'd begged for in life. In death, people remembered his humanity. In death, the joke stopped. Michael Jackson's death forced a reckoning that most people weren't prepared for. The same society that had turned him into a punchline suddenly wanted to claim him as a tragedy. The same media that ran cruel headlines about Wacko Jacko now published tributes celebrating his genius. The transformation happened overnight, and in that transformation was a confession: we knew. Deep down, we always knew he was suffering. We just chose entertainment over empathy. The memorial service at the Staples Center drew millions of viewers worldwide. His golden casket sat center stage while celebrities and family members eulogized him. His daughter Paris, just 11 years old, approached the microphone and said the words that shattered any remaining illusions: "Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine. And I just wanted to say I love him so much." Her voice broke. Her pain was raw. And suddenly, Michael Jackson wasn't a freak or a headline or a controversy. He was someone's father. Someone's son. Someone's friend. He was human. The autopsy revealed the full extent of his physical decline. His body showed years of pain management, scarring from surgeries, evidence of chronic conditions, the toll of decades performing. His weight was dangerously low. His organs showed the stress of long-term medication use. This wasn't a man living in luxury and excess. This was a man barely holding on, trying to meet impossible expectations while his body broke down. Every detail confirmed what should have been obvious: Michael needed help, not another tour. Dr. Conrad Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and served 2 years in prison. The trial revealed the shocking negligence of Michael's final nights: propofol administered in a bedroom, no proper monitoring, Murray on the phone while his patient died. But Murray was a symptom, not the disease. The real sickness was a system that allowed a vulnerable, drug-dependent person to be exploited because his suffering was profitable. Everyone who pushed Michael toward those 50 shows shared responsibility. Everyone who looked away when he asked for help contributed to his death. The estate that Michael left behind was buried in debt, over $400 million owed to various creditors. After his death, that estate generated billions through music sales, the This Is It documentary, and the Cirque du Soleil shows. Dead Michael Jackson was worth more than living Michael Jackson. That economic reality exposed the cruelest truth: the industry valued his productivity over his person. They needed him functional, not healthy. They needed him performing, not healing. And when the only way to keep him functioning was dangerous medication administered by a negligent doctor, they accepted that risk. His children grew up without their father, raised by his mother Catherine. They've spoken about him with love and sadness, describing a devoted parent who tried to give them normalcy despite his fame. Paris struggled publicly with her own mental health, attempting suicide, battling depression. Prince became a producer, honoring his father's artistic legacy. Blanket, now going by Bye Guy, stays out of the spotlight. All three carry the weight of their father's complicated legacy: the music, the controversy, the love, the loss. The allegations that plagued Michael during life continued after death. The documentary Leaving Neverland presented disturbing accusations from two men claiming childhood abuse. The controversy divided people. Some believed the accusers. Others defended Michael's innocence. The truth may never be fully known. But what's certain is that Michael Jackson was a deeply damaged person. Whether he damaged others is a separate question from whether he was damaged himself. Both can be true. Victimhood doesn't excuse everything, but it explains something. What we refused to see during Michael's life was simple: fame is violence. We do violence to famous people by treating them as products rather than humans. We consume them, demand perfection, judge their every flaw, mock their pain, and express shock when they break. Michael Jackson didn't die because of one doctor or one bad decision. He died because we built a machine that grinds people down, and we fed him into that machine when he was 5 years old. He never escaped. The world has learned nothing. Child stars still get exploited. Performers still get pushed beyond their limits. People still value entertainment over the entertainer's well-being. We created posthumous shows using Michael's image and music, literally making his corpse dance for our amusement. The irony couldn't be more bitter. In life, we worked him to death. In death, we won't let him rest. Michael Jackson reached out for help in every way he knew how. He spoke about his pain in interviews. He built Neverland as a visible cry for healing. He wrote songs about loneliness and pressure. His behavior grew increasingly erratic as a signal of distress. But every signal was either monetised, mocked, or ignored. The world saw a spectacle where there should have been sympathy. We saw entertainment where there should have been intervention. The question haunts us still: what if someone had listened? What if when Michael said he was tired, someone said rest instead of push harder? What if when he showed signs of drug dependence, someone got him real help instead of finding more pills? What if when he whispered that he was scared, someone said you don't have to do this? What if we had valued Michael Jackson the person more than Michael Jackson the product? We'll never know. Michael is gone, buried at Forest Lawn Cemetery, his legacy forever complicated by triumph and tragedy intertwined. His music remains brilliant. His dancing still astonishes. His influence shaped generations. But his life was a warning we refuse to heed. When someone reaches out for help, silence is violence. When someone asks for compassion, mockery is cruelty. When someone is breaking, indifference is complicity. The world stayed silent when Michael Jackson needed it to speak. We laughed when we should have cared. We took when we should have given. We demanded when we should have protected. And now we live with that collective guilt, building memorials and writing tributes, pretending we always appreciated him, rewriting our role in his destruction. But the truth remains: we failed him. Fame failed him. The industry failed him. His family failed him. The medical system failed him. We all failed him. And he died alone, in a rented mansion, with dangerous drugs in his system, trying to sleep so he could wake up and perform for us one more time. That's not tragedy. That's murder by indifference. That's what happens when the world values the show more than the person putting it on. Michael Jackson reached out for help. We stayed silent. And silence, in the end, was the loudest sound of all.